Question number 19 of the ID password exam from PhilNITS. In this question, we are being asked, when a record in a file is modified, which of the following is an appropriate way of identifying the modified contents? The way to answer this is to read each of the statements and find out which among the choices is the most appropriate way of identifying the modified contents. We put an underline on this one, modified contents. For letter A, it's saying that we keep a record of the size and the modified date of the file, so we'll know if the contents of the file has been modified. For letter B, it's saying that we get a copy of the file and compare it to a modified one later. For letter C, it's saying that we keep a record of the number of records into the file. This one, I think, is incorrect immediately after just reading it. For letter D, we keep a record sorted in ascending order of the key field. This one too is incorrect because both C and D, they seem to talk about having a list of records, but we want to know the contents of the file. So it seems like these two help us organize data, but doesn't really tell us if the data has been modified or not. Now I was choosing just a while ago between letter A or letter B, and actually I chose the incorrect answer, which was letter A. I think it was because I had this idea about for another type of exam, it's more of a problem that is viewed using the lens of a project manager. But in this case, we have to look at it as an engineer. So it seems like having to get a copy and then comparing it to the modified one is the best answer to really know if the contents have been modified or not, instead of just looking at the size of the file and when it was modified, because it could be that the size has been the same all along, but the modified date has changed, so it looked like it has been a new file, but in the end the contents are just the same. So it seems like this one, the second statement, letter B, tells us a lot more about the contents, because we will compare it with a later one. So this one is the correct answer, letter B. And I'd like to really emphasize that we got to know what kind of hat we have to wear when we are taking the exam, because later on there will be a part in this exam where you have to wear the hat of a project manager, or someone who is um, supposed to be the guy who is leading the team and not necessarily the tech guy. So when you're taking the exam, you have to also know whether you have to look at the question from the perspective of an engineer or from the perspective of a project manager, and whatever role that is necessary to do the task. Let's see what notes I have regarding this number. Maybe we can learn more. Okay, I have here some of my notes saying that the file is modified and the contents. We have to focus on these two, so we know that if the file has been modified, then the contents too would have changed. And of course, we have several tools that we can use to compare files. GitHub tells us if you uploaded something and there are parts that are not the same anymore, it'll tell you which ones you've changed. And this is really helpful if you're working with a team and each and every member is modifying a single file. And we want to know if this team member has changed something, and um, if we are going to change the file too, then we have to put into the new file whatever changes he did, right? Otherwise, we will overlap, or we won't be able to put in his changes and sort of like just continue on with whatever we were changing as if his changes did not exist. And of course, we don't want that because we want to get the updated file by the end of the day, or when we put together the files um, in some point in time during the work week. The other tool that we can also use aside from GitHub is WinDiff, and I think I remember using something like this too for Windows. Linux, like Linux Ubuntu, has also another version of WinDiff, which they simply call diff, and in that way you can know which parts of a file has been changed. And I think really doing something like this helps us identify um, the parts of our code, for example, that um, we've changed and we've updated, so that when we um, continue on with the work task, we know that we are modifying um, the the newest file. Otherwise, we'll just keep on going and round and round and round, thinking that we've changed something already in this particular part of the code. But at the end, we see that why is the bug still there? Why is the bug not yet solved? When in fact, we have already used a certain number of man hours to identify the problem and solve the problem. But later on, we find out that the code for that part wasn't saved, wasn't included in the changes. And so we have to go back again and repair it and modify the file again. And that uses up definitely time and man hours. And when we're talking about time and man hours, we're talking about money too. So you're just throwing away another set of man hours, another set of money to do something that you've done before already. Okay, so again, the correct answer for this question is letter B. And if we look at the question and the choices again, letter B is saying that we compare the file. Get a copy of a file and compare it to the modified one later on to know if the contents are still the same or not.